What's up everyone? This is Ben Zinn for Next Level Guitar, and I want to say welcome to this video lesson. We have a video lesson today inspired by Led Zeppelin and the great Jimmy Page. We're taking a look at this jam track, this slow blues in D minor, and we're just getting into that vibe. We're getting into that mode. This video lesson is going to be all about showing you guys out there some examples, some ways to dial in your tone, some licks, some scales, everything that you're going to need to help you guys be more creative and expressive when you're having fun and jamming over this track. What better way to move ahead than to take a look at some signature sounding approaches and devices, things that Jimmy Page likes to use in his playing style that are good for all of us to get in our bag of tricks. And we're going to start off with talking about the hammer-on and pull-off technique. So what we're going to do is look at playing through our scale pattern. We're going to get a handle around these things by using our D minor pentatonic, later on in this lesson, we'll detail several additional scales that you can use when jamming over the track. But just to get our feet wet, we're going to use this first position box. And what we want to do is get comfortable with playing combination hammer-on and pull-off licks in this fashion. If I start here at the 10th fret at the top of my scale, I want to be very comfortable playing or what we're doing there is we're starting on a lower note in our scale pattern, and we're going to hammer on. We're going to pick the first note and then hammer on to the second. So you're creating the sound with your finger instead of the pick. Think about applying pressure to the note much more forcefully and quicker than you normally would, because you need to make the string ring out from your finger and not from your pick. So this first part is the hammer-on. Hammer-on is when you go from a lower note to a higher note. And the second component of that is a pull-off, where we are going to play the higher note and then sound the second note or lower note by pulling off of the string. The way I explain this is to think about picking the string with your finger. So when I'm fretted here at the 13th fret, I need to pull the string or pick the string with my ring finger in order to get the lower note to sound out. So we have a hammer on and we have a pull off. Jimmy Page likes to combine these, as do many other players, so this is a good technique to have in your toolbox. Hammer on to the note and combine with a pull off. So that's 3 notes sounding out with 1 pick. Once you feel good about that, try taking that through your whole scale. As you get comfortable with that, we can try playing some pattern-based runs through our scale to help us get even more comfortable with the hammer-on and pull-off technique. String bending is, of course, a very important part of the style too. And just some tips on basic string bending. Whenever you're bending a note, you always want to make sure that you know where you're trying to get that pitch to, right? We don't want to just randomly start pushing up the string without any idea of where we're going. And the best way to do this is to try to visualize the next highest note in the scale. More often than not, you're bending one note up to the next note in the scale. So let me give you an example. With our D minor pentatonic scale, if I take this note right here and I bend it, I'm trying to match that pitch to the next note in the scale. Great way to practice your bends is to sound the higher note and then try to match it with your bend. This note, bending up to that note, matching our pitch. So basics of bending, know where you're going to. Jimmy Page likes to use a technique a lot called oblique bending, which is where we're going to keep one note the same while we bend a different note. You'll see all kinds of licks in his style where he'll work his way up to a run and fret one note and bend the next. This is a good technique to try to get down in several positions where you'll see common licks that feature this. We'll see this one right here. You might separate out those notes. You might play them together. Up here you'll see the same thing. So we're starting to form licks already, but we see it's based on a very specific technique. We have this oblique bend. This note stays fretted, this one gets bent. Same lick an octave lower. Occasionally, you might see these oblique bends where they skip a string. Another technique really common to Page's playing style is the overbend, where we're bending more than a whole step, bending a step and a half or even 2 whole steps. So this is where we're really reaching for it in our scale. If we mapped out our minor pentatonic scale, we would see that sometimes the amount of distance between notes, like this note going to this note, that's a step and a half. So if I wanted to bend this guy up to match the next note in the scale, I'd really have to push this one up a lot harder maybe than I'm used to with some of my other bends. And just for comparison, if I didn't bend that up a step and a half, we get that note that sounds out of pitch, right? Again, it's so important to make sure we match our pitch with our bends. So just go for them, play the higher note, and then match. And that's good practice. You can do that over the track while you're having fun, just trying to match those pitches. A good lick that features one of those oversized bends up here, same sort of idea, just in the higher position. Really like that one. So we're shooting this guy up a step and a half, and then coming back down chromatically. And then if we're feeling brave, we can shoot this one up 2 whole steps. When we shoot up 2 whole steps, a lot of times we're thinking about jumping a note in our scale, right? So just to map out our minor pentatonic scale in this position, just a small segment of it here. And by the way, check out the PDF that we're attaching with this file. We're gonna map out all the scales that you guys can use, all the different positions, strategies. Keep that on hand as we're talking about these scales. It'll be really handy to reference to. What I'm doing here is I'm taking this note and I'm trying to bend it up to this one. So I'm skipping a note in the scale. Instead of just bending it up to here, I'm going to bend it up to here. And I'll work it into some other notes. You might even find yourself playing around with the pitches in those bends too. You know, maybe I'll go up a whole step, maybe I'll go up 2 whole steps, and then just go up a whole step. So there's so much music and so many cool licks within those overstep bends as you start to get a handle on them. Raking into some notes, another really popular Page-inspired technique or device. And he does this going up, going down, and it's a really nice way to stylize a lick. He's got a couple of cool go-to moves that I want to touch on here. Right here in our position that we referenced earlier, he's got that thing that's sort of a sweep into the string where we're just dead dropping on the pick. And we're rolling that with our fingers here. I'm outlining a chord shape. D minor there. And I'm trying to roll my fingers along with the dead drop of my pick. And a lot of times that'll be used as a device to get into some other lick, right? I might start out and finish any number of different ways. So there I just raked into it, did a little bend, and worked down my scale. Or I might rake into it and stay in the higher portion of my scale and explore some bending opportunities within my pattern. In this position, if I bar my 10th fret at strings 1 and 2, and I take a finger and bend the 12th fret up a whole step, and then follow through, and then finish with a pull off here on string 2, I have a 5-note idea that can function as a repeated phrase in this playing style. And a couple of things to note about this. The way I choose to pick this is to down pick strings 3 and 2 and up pick the first string. The reason I like to do this is it sets me up as I up pick the first string to move back down to the lower strings. There's all kinds of ways to do this. I'd encourage you to experiment and see what you can get to flow. But just for reference, I'm going to go down, down, up, down with my pull off. The idea is you want to get comfortable with the idea of repeating that lick at a higher speed as a means to get you in and out of some other ideas. Right now, let's take a look at some of these approaches and devices over the track. So I'm going to isolate some of these examples and just play them against the track, and I encourage you to take what you see here, make it your own, try some of these examples over the track for yourself, and we'll move on to our next section, which will talk about mapping out our scale patterns.